Come on, easy up now. I don't want to die out here.
So starting things off, the very first mission in the epilogue is titled The Wheel. Now this is probably one of my favorite Easter eggs in the entire game, as this entire mission references the House of Camelot and the Knights of the Round Table. The mission's title is a reference to the Wheel of Fortune, which in ancient and medieval philosophy served as a symbol of the mercurial nature of destiny. Many traditional tales of King Arthur, such as Thomas Malory's famous The Death of Arthur, also use the concept of the wheel in such a way, with some stories and works of art making direct links between the wheel and the Round Table of Arthur's knights. A common interpretation of Thomas Malory's The Wheel of Fortune in The Death of Arthur, in particular, is that the wheel symbolizes the concept that even the greatest of human beings have flaws and make mistakes on their journeys toward their various fate. Thus, a man could be far from the ideal model of morality and yet still ultimately redeem himself and achieve his destiny of being a good knight or a king. This could go hand in hand, directly referencing the story of what just happened with Arthur's life and all that you played during the main game of him ultimately redeeming himself and achieving his redemption. Or this could be the start of John's story of redemption, and this could be referencing him as we see the big change that happened from the beginning of the story of how he didn't care for his family and didn't want anything to do with really Jack or Abigail, and just wanted to drink and party and kill and continue living a bad life as being a bad father. But now we see towards the end of the main missions in Red Dead Redemption 2, leading into the epilogue, we see that John is really trying his best to be a good father and provide for his family, even if it means doing the most tedious of chores, like we'll see in this part of Pronghorn Ranch. Also, at the very beginning of this mission, Jack rides in the back of the wagon, perhaps intended as a symbolic cart, when he has a conversation with John and Abigail about the stories of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table.
I'll do my best to find better reading material, Pa.
Is that what you like, then? Western tales? Boy,
What's that, sir?
do you enjoy tales of the Wild West?
Not so much. Anymore. I've been reading about knights. You know, of the Round Table.
The king. What's his name?
There's King Arthur, and there's Sir Lancelot, and the Lady Guinevere, and a whole lot of others.
Those names.
I kinda like them.
You know what? So do I.
Turn this wagon around.
John later gives the alias Lancelot, which is traditionally the name of King Arthur's bravest and greatest knight.
We're good people. We'll work. Even Lancelot.
What does Mr. Geddes need with a boy? Just another mouth to feed.
Just, please give us a chance. I can.
Hey, Pa.
Is that your boy?
Sure. Abe, Lancelot.
Well, hey, Lancelot.
Hey.
How old you now, Lancelot?
12, sir.
Ain't that grand? It's such a fine name.
I like it. I got imaginative parents, sir.
I can tell. Now,
For centuries, Lancelot had represented a key figure in biblical motives associated with Arthurian legends. One of the first and most influential stories to feature Lancelot as a protagonist was the 12th century epic poem Lancelot the Knight of the Cart, in which the hero's quest to save Lady Guinevere has been compared by literary critics to Christ's quest to redeem the human soul. And as we can see throughout a lot of the Redemption games, Red Dead Redemption 1 and Red Dead Redemption 2, there are a lot of biblical themes and references, which I personally like. To each main story mission, you can actually see direct Bible verses being quoted, or even just the game itself, and the quest to redemption is ultimately what Christ wants to do for humanity, and is what he did actually by dying on the cross, was to redeem humanity's soul, the fall from God. Now that could just be going way too down deep into a rabbit hole, and I'm not going to get religious or anything about this kind of things, but I'm just comparing how also those biblical motives play into part into the entire story and not necessarily just in referencing Lancelot. Also during this mission, John first uses the name Jim Milton as an alias.
You Mr. Geddes?
No, sir. I'm Mr. Dickens, his overseer.
Jim Milton. I'm delivering some supplies from the store in Strawberry.
Okay.
Mrs. Milton!
Jim Milton. How fine you seem. This kind man just collected us. Thank you, sir.
I think we can be up.
Yeah, we used to have a bunch of women here did most of the milking. Yeah, but most of them drifted off.
Okay.
You fine with milking?
You know, I ain't really done much of it. Could never really get the hang of it.
You serious, mister?
Sure. It's Jim. Jim Milton.
Hey, just sit down, I'll show you how.
The name may be a reference to an English poet named John Milton, whose epic poem Paradise Lost describes the fall of man and shares many themes with the Redemption games. Paradise Lost notably was originally intended to follow the legends of King Arthur before the author decided to make the poem directly biblical. It seems that one of the main sources of inspiration that Rockstar took, at least in terms of creating their characters and their characters' personalities, is from the House of Camelot and the Knights of the Round Table, with King Arthur, of course, being Arthur Morgan himself, or some people may even be able to say that King Arthur may be even represented by Dutch, but I think it's more closely associated with Arthur Morgan. For example, the name itself, Arthur Morgan, if we're going to talk in terms of the Arthurian legends, it's a symbolism of conflict. And much like in the Redemption game, even though from the legends Morgan is an evil and dark character, Arthur from the game is kind, good-hearted, and he's the main hero. And he has an internal conflict within himself, and by having his existential crisis when he gets sick, whether to help John and his family and everybody else that he's wronged, and how he can really turn his life around to be saved and redeem himself, or to give his ever-ending loyalty to Dutch, even though he sees his descent into madness and how Micah is completely giving him more and more reasons to distrust Dutch and everything that he's doing that leads to the gang's eventual downfall. Arthur from the legend also is a war leader for all the Knights of the Round Table, and this could be the same as just how Arthur is the main leader, Dutch's right-hand man, and always the first guy on his horse, and a protector and a leader for the gang. Being second in Dutch's command, well, at least apart from Hosea, Arthur has that seniority and how he always participates in all the main missions and quests and for looking out for his fellow gang members. Now the list could go on and on about how many different characters in the game actually represent the Knights of the Round Table, but I think that could be a special idea for another video for a different time. I don't think I'll have enough time in this video to cover it. Such as Micah's horse, Baylock, which is the place where the evil knights come from. But again, given how much symbolism that Red Dead Redemption 2 has to this, I think it's a lot better to just save all of these references for a separate video that I can elaborate a lot more on. But that's just giving an example. Even Abigail is given a name from the House of Camelot when John names her Agatha. Could have been inspired by Queen Agatha Pendragon of Camelot. So anyway, that's going to be it for this video. I know it's a little bit different than what we normally do here on the channel, but I thought I'd try something new and see how it's received by my audience. And if everybody likes this kind of style of videos, I can do more of like the lore and referencing side of this game. Thanks everyone again, God bless, and see you in the next video.
Wake him up a little!
Forgiveness? There's some folks who don't deserve it.